All right. Hi, everybody. It is April 25th. My name is, this is the American Micro Podcast. My name is Anthony Pago. This is, you want to introduce yourself, man?
Yeah, Rodney Hubbard. How's it going,
Yeah.
everybody?
And once again, I'm from Oklahoma City. I'm streaming here from there. And where are you, Rodney? You're in
I'm in Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Yeah, beautiful, crazy ass city.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Today we were,
yeah.
is this technically our second podcast or like, are we
It's
gonna,
we've been doing a few test runs, but yeah, this
yeah.
is basically our second podcast.
And
Yeah,
we're gonna talk a little bit about like American conspiracy. I know that there's a million American conspiracies, but we were asked to lean a little bit into kind of like the origins of conspiracy in America, like the Illuminati and stuff that kind of
yeah,
filtered into future conspiracies. And I think in order to get to the current state of conspiracy in America, we should touch on the Illuminati, and then we can move our way forward and exit it.
well, it kind of grew up in the 1700s
Yeah,
in Europe.
Bava- Bavaria. Yeah,
Yeah, a bunch of elite guys, elite European men who wanted to rule the world, pretty much.
Well, so I've done a lot of digging, and that was my understanding growing up was that, and it's because of, in my opinion, propaganda that's been fed mostly from religious, political entities and through pop culture, like movies and books and stuff that reference the Illuminati. And I
Right.
was sold, and I bought hook, line, and sinker that the Illuminati was. I thought it was fictional. I thought it was just like a conspiracy, like it was just something fed to people either as a joke or to scare kids or what to blame certain things on, and that actually turns out to be pretty true. It is an entity that's been used to blame things on, but uh, upon investigating, I was shocked to find out that it wasn't really a bunch of guys who wanted to control the world like we were taught. We were taught that they were like, these mega rich, basically mega rich white, landowners who wanted to pull the puppet strings and control the world. And the reality of the situation was, and this is documented, like the Bavarian government uh, really weird, crazy incident where the Illuminati actually did get started by Carrie Thornley in 1776, but they grew a little bit, and while they were growing, they had chapters, and one of the chapters was delivering documents because they kept records and stuff like that. They were teaching each other, they were passing along knowledge. I'll get more into that in a little bit,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
they were transferring records from and documents from one location, not library, but like clubhouse or whatever you want to think of it as, to another. And the guy who was carrying the documents, one of the members, was struck by lightning,
What?
yeah, and he died. And so the police came and they found this dead dude, and they found these documents on him, and the documents detailed like everything about this secret society. It had all of their like crazy leftist, basically literature, membership roles, and talked about all of the various like locations they had, the clubhouses they had, and membership and all that stuff. And that proved to the government that these people not only existed as a secret government, but that they were members. There was no denying it from that point forward. So Bavaria, being part of Germany these days, like it got absorbed through historical stuff. We can talk about that maybe in some future podcast.
Yeah.
But the police there and the government being as good at record keeping as they were and are today, they still have all of these documents. They still exist. So it can't be denied that the Illuminati was a real thing. There's physical evidence because some dude got hit by lightning while riding a horse in
So
Bavaria.
was it just
Um,
a Bavarian thing, or was it like throughout? I mean, all of
It
Europe, or how did
spread.
that work?
Yeah, it did. No, it spread throughout the world, throughout Europe, and eventually over into the United States, supposedly, and through kind of like the Freemasons and stuff. So, Carrie Thornley and three other dudes. Well, it started off with just a couple guys. They were pretty progressive and what we'd call leftists here in the United States. It's a little different over there.
Yeah,
They were more against the church back then, the conservative churches, but Catholicism was really, in control back then. And then there was,
still is.
yeah, yeah, still is.
Yeah.
And then there was the Jesuits too, who are a little more liberal than Catholicism, in that they are hyper into like sciences and math and philosophy and stuff, and they love educating people. It's a big part of their belief systems. But they were also too conservative for Kerry Thornley and his group that started this Illuminati thing. So they started this secret group, and they kind of piggybacked onto the Masons, which for anybody who doesn't know about the Masons, what they actually are, it is a fraternal order, a group. Well, there's like a women's section of it too, but
Yeah.
it is kind of a secretish society. It's publicly known, but you have to be invited and pay dues and work your way through it. You didn't have to be super rich, but it's not very likely you would be a member if you were like super poor, because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there were like costumes you had to buy and rituals and all this stuff. Anyway, they piggybacked off of the membership to recruit into this new um, secret society that they were building, and so the secret society was not intended to like rule the world as much as it was to usher in like kind of an age of enlightenment. They were against the church's like bigotry and like conservative values, that like their hate and their politics and the theocratic nature of it. The church liked authoritarianism, and these guys were pushing democracy for the first time in a long time. And so, and they were doing it pretty publicly themselves, but they wanted to build up a group of people to help spread the word. And part of that was by uh, producing these texts, or like copying and distributing a lot of texts to educate people on these ideas, and they needed to raise money to basically buy all this literature that they were going to be spreading around to spread these ideas around. So
Hmm.
they created the society with kind of like fanciful rules, kind of like the Freemasons did. I don't, if anybody who has kind of seen like the Illuminati type robes and stuff in movies, that kind of stuff is like how the Freemasons were. The Freemasons like had different colored robes and all these weird. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, like played out by adults in real life. They gave each other weird names, and they had like swords and some crazy rituals and secret like levels that you had to work your way up and stuff. And the Illuminati kind of like took on a little bit of that persona, so that they could get some rich people to join their group, and they did that just so they could get funded. So
Do
they
you
were kind
think?
of
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
they did that so they could get funding to produce, or to buy and to produce like documents, so they could spread radical ideas like democracy and anti-bigotry and abortion. They helped people get access to abortion. They actually legitimately ended up building and writing instructions on how to make fake like but kind of like prescriptions from doctors and stuff. Basically,
What?
they faked documentation to get people access to abortions back then. And so these guys were doing like good stuff, but it wasn't really liked by the local leaders, who were especially conservative and
So do
religious.
you think? Do you think? Okay, let me ask you this. Do you think because they were doing such amazing stuff, on let's just say a democratic um, point of view, that maybe that was their agenda? Do you think how is it that there's or they somehow found the title of this crazy like group of people who spread disinformation and fear throughout the world? I mean, how do you think that happened?
Oh, I got to correct something. I said it was Carrie Thornley. That's later. This was Adam Weishaupt. I'm not very good with
Yeah,
German
yeah, yeah. No,
pronunciation.
no, yeah.
I jumped forward in time to an American.
776. Yeah,
Yeah, that was Adam Weishaupt. Yeah, I
yeah.
messed that up, but that's fine. So, what was the question again? What?
I mean, yeah. I mean, because of when everyone thinks of the Illuminati, they think of like um, a lot of like really like deep state, you know, like like how can I say, like black ops type of, you know, it was the Illuminati who, you know,
Yeah, like kind of the
assassinated. Go ahead.
right, like the mind control type dark, like
Absolutely, absolutely.
Um, actually, yeah, that a lot of that mentality. That's what I was saying, and in that they did become the kind of victims of intentional, um, uh,
Sabotage.
well, yeah, like propaganda to blame them
That
for
too. Yeah.
everything. There was an American hyper religious proselytizer named what was his name? I wrote it down. Um, Timothy Dwight the Fourth, and he was the eighth president at Yale College, the Yale we know about, from 1795 to 1817, and he was, I mean, as religious as you get. He was basically a preacher as well. He did this sermon where he goes on a rant for the entire sermon about how evil the Illuminati, and he names them in the sermon. We still have the sermon because
Wow.
they wrote down their sermons and they
Yeah.
preserved them. So we've got it, and he names the Illuminati in this sermon. When was what year was I can't remember. It was like a decade or a few years after the Illuminati was made illegal in
What
Bavaria
and when was
and shut
this?
down. This was well, he was at Yale College from 1795 to 1817.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I've got a copy of his his, uh, his sermon, and we can probably link to that because it's super interesting. Here it is. The sermon is called like "Duty to America." Oh man, it wants me to verify that I'm human. So he goes into this long rant that sounds exactly like what you'd hear from the religious conservative, like far right today, where he's talking about all of the democratization of all of the nations in Europe, and he's going on and saying like, look at what hellholes they've become now that they're leaving God behind and taking on these new leftist ideas. He doesn't call them leftists, but that's the mentality he's going through. Is that they're leaving the godly type way, they're leaving the conservative view, and the place has just become it's like when you hear people say that like. Anywhere there's a protest, like Portland, they say it's on fire, like the whole place is on fire, it's going to hell.
Well, it pretty
And
much is. I mean,
there's a little bit of that, but like the place was not like literally the city wasn't burned to the ground, and that's stuff you would hear from like the conservatives saying like the entire city like burned to the ground, and clearly it
yeah,
had
yeah.
not. Like there
No,
was
it
like a
hadn't.
there was like a block that had some big fires in it. But so okay, so this sermon that he gave, let's see. The Duty of Americans at the Present Crisis, illustrated in a discourse preached on the 4th of July, 1798, by the Reverend Timothy Dwight, president of Yale College, at the request of the citizens of New Haven. So, this whole thing, he goes in and talks about the Illuminati and the nations that have moved towards democracy, and he talks about it's the cause of the evils today. Like, and he's blaming all of the evils, not just the nations that adopted these mentalities that were pushed by the Illuminati, but
Well,
all of the problems of the world
here's
now are because of like this group. So religious people started calling them the reason for all the world's wrongs, just like people on the internet will call communism. It's just like a
or
scapegoat
socialism.
or
Well, I mean,
socialism.
so so I found this thing. It says that the spread of conspiracy theories and disinformation can have negative consequences for society and democracy.
Hmm.
So these guys were like, even though they were doing even though they were trying to help people, there were people out there, like you were saying, who are like, nah, we don't want that. We don't want that in our lives. And we're like, but hey, man. And it goes on to say, when people are exposed to false or misleading information, they may form incorrect beliefs and make decisions based on flawed assumptions, dude.
Yeah.
So, in other words, uh, you've got these guys all of a sudden out of nowhere. I mean, the guy, how did he gets hit? The cops find his papers, and all of a sudden, all their information's out in the world.
Yeah.
There are, and then there are all these preachers who are like, pretty much like what they're doing today. Look at Chicago. Look at Baltimore. Look at all these cities that are run by Democrats. Blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay. So when I think about the Illuminati, as for me, like when I was a kid, whenever you heard, dude, like we steered away from like Freemasons. We steered away from like. We didn't want to, especially growing up in the 60s, because I mean, if you think about it, Kennedy was assassinated, and no one knows how. Like why?
Right.
Everyone knows how, but no one knows why. No one
Right.
knows. No one really knows why he was. I mean, come on. We've all heard it. We've all we've all been down that road where it's like, Lee Harvey Oswald was part of a Cuban right militia, or a Cuban militia group where it was the mafia, it was the military industrial complex. I mean, who did it? It's
Right.
And so for me, it's like, it's like the big one, the 9/11 conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge, man. How did this building just fall all by itself?
Right.
I mean, you remember all the questions that were being asked.
Yeah. That's all anybody did was talk about the conspiracy.
For 5 years after, bro.
Yeah.
People walking out of, like one day you wake up and the Twin Towers are gone. Like they're gone. And all of a sudden, and then you see the movie where, who was the vice president at the time? I know Bush was the president. Cheney, it was all about money. Weapons of mass destruction. Was it really? Did they ever find any? Or was it just about oil? And I'm going to make a lot of money. You know what I mean? So, I mean, the Illuminati, it's crazy, but I believe in conspiracy. I just do. I believe.
Well,
go ahead.
So it's interesting. Like you talked about JFK. I want to reverse back to that for a second. You were talking about all these different theories, and one of them that when I was younger had heard, but just blew off because I considered all mentions of conspiracy theory, especially the Illuminati, to be ridiculous, childish, outlandish fantasy stuff for people who put, tinfoil hats on their head and, looked out the window through the blinds, all day. And it turns out that guy that I mentioned earlier, Kerry Thornley, the American, he's like a civil era revolutionary who did influence American civil rights and American culture heavily. He's all over the place. He wrote, along with a friend, the Principia Discordia, which was the document that founded their own fictional religion called Discordianism. And it was intentionally lampooning a lot of these secret societies and stuff. If you read the texts, like their little book and everything, it's full of jokes, self-contradictory jokes, They give themselves ridiculous names. They say that the members can turn anybody into a saint, but there's like different levels of saints, and humans can only be made into like a lower level saint, and the higher level saints can only be the only people that can be turned into higher level saints are fictitious people, like somebody from a cartoon or somebody from a movie that doesn't actually exist. The whole thing is like a joke, you know what I mean? But in those texts, they call themselves the Illuminati. They say that they are the continuation of the original Illuminati. Now everything in there is a joke. They were having a big laugh, but people who are like super religious or super crazy who buy into this, who buy into all conspiracies and link them together because
The
that's just
grassy
what
knoll,
some people
dude. The grassy
some,
knoll.
some people need that type of power to make the world make sense. But
You know?
they think that they think that this is real, that it was the Illuminati because first of all, this document that Kerry Thornley wrote says that they're the Illuminati, so they're taking them at his word, their word. But Kerry Thornley actually knew Oswald. They were
Wow.
like, yeah, they were in the military,
In the Marine Corps,
um, and
actually.
then they lived in New Orleans, like blocks away from each other.
Crazy.
After they got out of the military and stuff like that, he Kerry Thornley says that he didn't know that Oswald was in New Orleans when they both lived there, which I guess could be true. They might not have hung out. I mean, I've lived in cities where I haven't, known that somebody I knew lived blocks away. That's happened in several cities, so
Big
I
time.
can I can buy that. But
I've been there.
like, Thornley, is kind of a tragic story. He was just this crazy, interesting, like smartass, basically, who was into like what would have been again like kind of a D&D nerd, loved kind of wizardy type like secret societies and was a smartass. And later in life, he was really impoverished because he went kind of insane. Um,
Mhm.
like actually mentally ill, insane. I don't mean just like kooky, writing kooky stuff. And he ended up getting accused of like trying to abuse a little girl from a family friend. Like they got caught. He had brought the girl.
What?
He got caught. And I hate that like this guy's kind of a hero to a lot of people who are into like anarchism and like nihilism and just like fucking shit up, like saying like the system sucks, let's break it,
Yeah.
through chaos. But this guy, like, as when he got older, I mean, he went through several stages in his life. Like later in his life, he ended up reading Ayn Rand, the female
Yeah,
author
yeah,
who
yeah. I know who she is.
convinced a
Yeah.
lot of conservatives to like fall in love with capitalism and turn into awful people with no empathy. They say like everyone should lift themselves up by their own, bootstraps, and
I
we should get
recently
away.
saw an interview. Oh, what was the guy's name of her and Mike? Oh, you know who I'm talking about? He was on 60 Minutes. Mike, oh, dude, Wallace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mike Wallace. And she is scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
she looks scary. She sounds scary. What was she like? Where is she from? She
I,
was
you know,
European.
I can't remember where she was from, and it's been a long time since I investigated
But,
her
dude,
life.
yeah, I mean, dude, if you're into Ayn Rand, that's just a scary. Look, there are tons, and I mean, there are a lot of conspiracies that you can just take apart. I mean, we could sit here. So I just did some research. Listen to this. Here are 20 of the most well-known conspiracy theories that are connected to America.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Okay, check this out. So the JFK assassination conspiracy is number one.
Sure. Yep.
The 9/11 conspiracy
Yep.
is number two. The moon
Right.
landing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
We faked it.
yeah. I mean, really? Dude. We didn't fake that. Okay. I mean, there was there was Sputnik, and then we were just like, okay, we gotta, there was the Gemini testing, and then what was the after Gemini? It was
It was like Apollo or something like that.
Apollo. Yes, thank you. And I remember watching that in Washington D.C. Our entire family is sitting around one of those like 25-foot color TVs with all the wood and everything, watching the moon landing.
Yeah. Wow.
Crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Crazy. That was in
Yeah. I don't have a
1969.
whole lot of I don't have a whole lot of like wish that I grew up in that era because of all the problematic things from the past, but I
Dude, it
do
was
wish that I had
insane.
been alive for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane. It was insane. That whole like that. I mean, okay. So there's that, and then there's the
Well, hold
Roswell.
on. Hold on before we get into that. I'll say
Yeah.
we know, like we know that it happened. I mean, you can find out yourself. Anybody who's watching this, you can find out that we've been to the moon by getting enough equipment to shoot a laser off of a mirror we put up there. It's like a 2 foot by 2 foot mirror that we put
Wow.
up there from one of our missions. So you can find out, you can verify yourself that we've been to the moon by shooting a laser and having it bounce back and measuring the distance. That's how we measure how far the moon moves away every year. It's like an inch and a half or something like that every year it moves away. Anyway, go ahead. So Roswell.
No. Yeah. So yeah. Then Roswell. You know, all the aliens, all the Area 51. You know,
Yeah,
like all that stuff.
like was it a
Where?
weather balloon or
Yeah.
did they say it was a weather balloon and it was alien craft that we hid in that we to this day have, at Area 51 underground or whatever?
I mean, and then there's of course the Illuminati and Freemason, but then there's the New World Order. God, how many people are like, dude, it's all about the global New World. I'm like, dude, look, as long as you're alive and you think that we're going to be doing the Soylent Green thing, if you think we're going to be, no, dude, it's just, I don't, okay, possibly, maybe, okay, but honestly, I don't think people are that crazy about what's going on with our government. I mean, like, if you've been watching what's going on in France, the Blackstone building was that the name of the company, Blackstone?
Is this what tell me what you're
They
talking about.
well, it's one of the huge like monolithic. Oh, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's just like this huge company that owns like basically all the other companies. Have you watched those riots or those protests in France lately?
I've seen a little bit about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they've been, and it's not just about the um like they're mad about they're raising the retirement age 2 years in France. It's not
Right.
just about that. It's about everything. It's about their rights as people, their rights as citizens. You know
Sure.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So they're at the door. They broke into, or they rummaged through, or they're sitting in on Blackstone headquarters right now. And you know, if you and I was in the Marine Corps, so I mean, I can see how people would think that, yeah, there's a new world order. I mean, after World War II, after we crushed everything, like we beat Japan, we there was no outcome in actually the last 4 or 5 wars that we've been in. There was no outcome. There's how can I say, with the Chinese and the North Koreans there, that was a stalemate. We didn't win the war in Vietnam, and we actually lost that war. Um, Grenada wasn't a war. Believe it or not, we got our butts kicked in Beirut. We lost.
Yeah.
Lost an entire compound of Marines and sailors and soldiers. I think 242 men died there. What else? I mean, what have we won? What have we done? We've just now it's just it's people making money off the military.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we set up bases around the world to
we've
protect
got
our
over
interests.
200 bases. We've got a crazy number. Who was it? Eisenhower, General Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "Beware of the military-industrial complex." He said that before he died, 1959, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
rings true because, I mean, you know, like when I hear people, and this is, hold on, let me just name a couple more. flat Earth conspiracy, the Obama birther conspiracy, QAnon, which is might as
Yeah.
well be Illuminati, the
Right.
revised Illuminati, the Clinton body count conspiracy, the Clintons, you know how they just got rid of people,
Yeah.
um, the Sandy Hook conspiracy, you know, like
hmm
did those kids really die? The
Right.
Boston Marathon bombing conspiracy, the weather control conspiracy, COVID conspiracy.
Yeah.
I got all my shots. I got 4 shots. I'm cool. You know, it's just,
Yeah.
but I mean, being in the Marine Corps, you can see how something like the Illuminati or QAnon or because there's a lot of stuff out there, dude. I mean, I was in Panama. I mean, I've been all over the place, but Panama was the country when we went into Panama in '87 that really struck me. Like it just kind of like I told you that story, right? Or did I? Well, okay,
I don't
not
know if you
really.
went. Yeah, I don't know if you went entirely into it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's 1987. Literally, we're asleep, and I think it was the staff NCO of COM just comes in and goes, "Pack your shit, pack your trash." We're sitting on a flight deck, get on a plane, fly down to Panama, Howard Air Force Base. It's 1987. I mean, it's hotter than, dude. It's hot. It's like and you got to realize that we get there in October, and it's like that's the beginning of their summer because we're in the bottom half of the hemisphere, right?
Right.
So we get off the plane, man. It's like it's got to be like 95 degrees, 100% humidity. It's Panama, right? I mean, it's just stupid hot.
Right.
Bus pulls up. We've got all our gear, all of our ammo, all of our everything. Bus pulls up. Bus has bullet holes in it. You can see the bullet holes, right? And we're like, we look at Gunny. He's like, just get on the bus, dude. Just get on the bus. We're like, okay, all right. What? So we get on the bus. We squeeze over the locks. Like there's the canal, like 80 yards down. There's the water. We squeeze through the locks. Now this is the part that kind of like once we're driving up to Fort Sherman, you know, all these buses of Marines. No one knew we were there. No one was like, there's like 1,200 Marines, dude. There's like a ton of us. Like, anyways, so we're driving up to Fort Sherman, and literally we look to the right, and there are these houses with no windows, no doors, and the people are just standing out there, like looking at us, like we're like aliens, you know.
hmm
And we're sitting there going, at least I was, a couple of us were. We were just like, dude, no one lives like this, bro. Like when you don't see, like when you're a tourist, when you go to Paris or Tokyo or Toronto, and you're like la 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 la. I mean, once you get into the hinterland, like into like in a third world country, and I've been to a couple, and I've seen a lot of, you know, same way in Brazil. When I was in Brazil, it was the same thing. You were just like, whoa. And see, I went to Brazil by myself. Well, that's another story. But Panama, in and of itself, dude, it was just a travesty. It was one of the poorest countries. This was 18 months before the invasion of Panama.
Yeah.
So we were there pooping and snooping, going to Jess school under the guys, jungle environmental survival training. And, you know, you realize that, you know, it's not America, man. And things, whether it's Illuminati, QAnon, blah, 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 QAnon, they're just nuts. That's my own opinion. But the Illuminati, hey, man, we're trying to make things better. We don't, in the history of the world, when has any European white man wanted things to be better for anybody?
Right.
Like when? Like tell me when. Wherever they've gone.
I mean, are you talking? I mean, like there's obviously like exceptions. Like you're talking about like only. You mean from Europe, but like, are you including Americans? Because there's some cool dudes like Thomas Paine was one of our founding fathers
Well,
who was
no, I'm
actually a
talking.
good guy.
I'm talking about. Well, I'm talking about the Spanish, the Dutch, the like. I mean, if you want to talk conspiracy, I mean, what the conspiracies that they hatched in Africa and India and in the Far East. There's tons of them, man. I mean, I know that stuff. I mean, there's just the Dutch trading the Dutch trading company that the Dutch who went from you know they didn't really they the good thing about the Dutch is they really didn't have to fight anybody. They just knew that if they just traveled the world and sold their goods and got into the slave trade, that they'd be cool.
Yeah.
The Belgians were the same way in the Belgian Congo. All of the resources that they snatched out of there. You know what I mean? But the Spanish and the English, I mean, yeah, they and even the Germans, but the Bavarians. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff, man. I mean, conspiratorially speaking, it's a situation where after you've seen it, you start to think about it. You don't just go, oh, that's you get off the bus. You go do your thing in Panama, you come back, you get on the plane, you fly back to America, and you're just like, damn, dude, like, really? And then you come back and there are like all these Americans that are just like, like they have no idea. Like right now, dude, right at this very moment, there are men in the United States military on some specific or in some specific part of the world doing something covert for running a mission that's covert for the United States of America.
Right.
Period.
Right.
In our interests, okay? You want to call that a conspiracy? Well, that's what it is.
Right, but like you said, you called QAnon people nuts, which is true. I'm not going to argue that at all. But there's definitely like, I wish there were different words, and I think the lines are blurred historically on purpose, like between a distinct legal conspiracy, which does exist. Like where people decide they're going to off a partner, or they're going to whatever control a market, or do human trafficking or whatever.
Dude, the Fox lawsuit
Yeah, exactly.
was
I mean,
a
like,
conspiracy.
yeah, they're texting each other the opposite of what they're telling everybody, publicly on their channels. Like those are real legitimate conspiracies that exist. And then there's like everything else that falls into kind of like the QAnon, like the nutty tinfoil hat, La La Land kind of type conspiracies. And so because like legitimate actual conspiracies exist, it somehow gives too much credence
Yeah.
to like the wacky like outlander stuff, and that's where people go down these rabbit holes. I mean, unfortunately, there is this propensity for human beings to want to make sense of like a nutty, crazy world, and some of the world is intentionally made bad by awful people, usually through greed, usually follow the money, right? Is the big
Donald
deal.
Trump.
But yeah, that's a great example. But there's this propensity for people to want to be like on the inside with that knowledge. They want to be one of the insiders who understands the reality behind why the world is the way it is.
Check it out. The conspiracy of gerrymandering. Gerrymandering.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It's a legit.
It's
like,
real. It's real.
Manufactured problem.
Yeah, it's a manufactured conspiratorial problem. You want to call it? No, it's just Jerry. No, dude, that's a conspiracy. When you conspire, that's the optimal. That's the optimal word, right? Conspire. Yeah. When you conspire to do something, to benefit yourself, and maybe to harm other people, it's a conspiracy. Like, wow, dude. Well, like, I could vote here, like and we won this. And how are we losing? How how does the GOP lose the presidency, the vote,
The popular vote for
the
decades.
popular vote for decades? How does that happen? And there's still a political entity that just is just alive and well. I mean, barely, but
Right.
how does that happen? You know, there's
Well, okay, so we talked about Donald Trump a little bit and QAnon, and like while it's easy for me to call them nuts, there was one brilliant tactician who formed a conspiracy. Steve Bannon,
yeah, he did.
used, and
Yeah, he did.
I'm going to tie this back to all of our Illuminati and the Discordians.
Yeah.
He used their tactics, their techniques, of appealing to that desire to understand the world and to trade in secret knowledge. And so what he did was he went to all of the angry, basically white. I mean, there's other people other than white people who joined up into the far right and the QAnon stuff. But he told them, yeah, I mean, it's way less.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he worked in the gaming industry, and so he knew a lot of these disenfranchised people were in, being awful, bigoted people in chat groups and stuff. So he was like, "Here's an army I can activate." I mean, he is quoted saying this. This isn't like, some theory of my own. This isn't a conspiracy theory of my own. He acknowledged this to reporters. Like, he was very open about this. He used the idea that people love trading in kind of secret knowledge, inside jokes. And so what formed was a little army, a group of angry young white men who were trading memes. And the meme was the Pepe the Frog stuff. There were a lot of,
yeah, I remember
there,
those.
there were a lot of different memes, but that was a big one for them, kind of a nod and a handshake, like on the 4chan discussion boards, and like there was 8chan and 8kun and all these other things. They would trade these rare memes, like they even became a currency where people would pay real money for like rare Pepe the Frog memes and stuff. And so they're trading actual conspiracy like ideas and these memes as kind of a currency, and this makes them feel like they're insiders and they're special and they belong to a group. It's a fraternal order. It's the idea of a fraternal order that was what the Freemasons were and what actual frats in universities do. It's a collective of men who may be disenfranchised, for whatever reason. Maybe they aren't liked by women so much, or maybe they want more ability to kind of select who they want based on power or money or whatever. They have their own self-serving needs, and they think maybe some of them want to build up a community, but it's usually a specific community. It's not everybody's community. Not everybody's welcome. They want it to go a certain way in their minds.
Alex Jones, Infowars.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen it happen. It's not a mystery. But Bannon intelligently used what the Discordianism group from Kerry Thornley's days that was used to kind of sow chaos to try to take down the system in like a funny, sarcastic, kind of intellectual way. And he used it to, instead of tear down authoritarianism, to try to put authoritarianism back in power in the United States. He kind of used like a good
and
idea.
It worked.
I don't know if I want to call like Discordianism and like that joking, like sarcastic kind of let's fuck with the system by spreading lies a good idea, but it was a creative idea, and unfortunately it gave a seriously effective playbook over to Bannon, and Bannon was a genius, an evil genius. I mean, if you want to talk about like the mad mwahaha that you see in the movies where there's somebody behind the curtains, pulling the strings, that was a moment where a man managed to pull off something big time. He got him elected once, but I think the problem with these things is once you unleash them, people kind of start to get tired of the tactic. They see through it a little bit. Not everybody. Obviously, not everybody sees through the tactics, but a lot of people who are critical thinkers start to see through it, and it's not as attractive anymore, especially because the base reveals themselves for who they really are.
Right.
The kind of the genuine nature of Trump is what, I'm not saying he's truthful, but like his genuine like fuck you, I don't fucking care attitude. That's
Yeah.
genuinely who he is, and it comes off as genuine. We're like we believe him when he says like he scoffs at people, makes those
I had a
faces,
buddy.
and he's
I
like,
had a buddy who was he was all over Trump. He was, and it's crazy because he was an Afghanistan war veteran, and he believed he was just like, dude, just like you said. He's like, we need to tear this thing down. We just need to tear it down and build it back up again. I'm like, bro, are you serious? He's like, yeah, because I mean, the status quo and globalism, and he went down that globalist rabbit hole that Alex Jones and Breitbart and all those cats.
which is thinly veiled like anti-Semitic like hatred, which
Oh,
is
huge, dude.
tied into all of this kind of stuff,
We would
throughout
have
history.
conversations, man, and he would say things to me. And this is, I mean, Dave is just an amazing person. I'm not going to say his last name, but we would sit at the whistle stop. Yeah, of course you do. You remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But he would say things like, you know, black people just need to be educated. I'm just, dude. I'm like, what? I'm like, bro, you need to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, right now, before I
Yeah.
punch you in your face. He would say things about indigenous people, dude. One of our buddies was indigenous. And we were both looking at him like, dude, there's a reason why you're about to like lose your life in about 5. And so one day we just had to sit him down and like really, without going into it, we really just had to like not try and change his mind, but just is the conspiracy that is it plausible that people who are educated, dude, what's his name from Breitbart? What's his name again?
Are you talking about not Alex Jones? Oh, I know who you're talking about.
No, the guy we were just talking about.
God, oh, Bannon.
Bannon. Did he go to
Bannon.
Harvard? Didn't he go to Harvard?
He was highly educated. I don't know if it was Harvard. Harvard.
Well, I mean, let me look. Anyways,
Yeah.
The dude is highly educated, dude.
Yeah.
And there are so many people out there who are like, just because you're highly educated does not make you enlightened.
Right. I mean, there's like Tucker Carlson, who was just fired from Fox News. Was it yesterday?
That's insane.
Was also an Ivy Leaguer, and incredibly wealthy through his family.
Well, he comes from that family, yeah.
Yeah, and he was one of the ones as well. He was texting like secretly, I fucking hate Trump, and
Harvard Business School.
Okay, Harvard. Yeah.
And he was I think he was an intelligence officer in the Navy as well.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That I remember reading a lot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy that these guys have like incredibly rich backgrounds, and yet they still push forward in their jobs this just gross, bigoted, disingenuous agenda that's not going to really enrich them the way they hope. And it just pushes forward a lot of ugliness.
Check this out. So I was listening to the radio today. Not the radio. It was on YouTube. And there's this one CIA, this one gentleman who was in the CIA for 20 years. He was an analyst, case officer. He was in the field, the whole 9 yards. And he said the type of people that when they went out and they tried to turn operatives.
Right.
The people that they looked for, the type of people they looked for, were narcissists, either narcissists or sociopaths.
Yeah.
Or had tendencies, not so much but they had tendencies to lean that way.
Right. There's spectrums, like everything else.
There's spectrums, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look at people like, and like the people they were going after were in the know. They were high up in other governments, but you know, he was just basically what he was saying was after 9/11, he's like, dude, he goes, before 9/11, I thought we were the good guys. He's like, after 9/11, he's like, it was over. It was like I knew something was wrong. It was like I knew that, you know, the playing field was not level and that I had to get out. Because I mean, you know, he was like, I could turn people like that. You know, he would find these people who were like, I love the United States. I want to be, and they were just okay. When it comes down to who we are, you've got to realize from 1776 until like right now, after the War of Independence, the Revolutionary War, and all the stuff that we've put not just ourselves through as people or citizens of this country, but all the things that, you know, you were talking about when it comes to you know when you're in Bavaria and it's 1776 or 77 and you're trying to change the world for the better and you're trying to make all these good things happen, and there are going to be people out there that just don't want that to happen, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Period. They just don't want it to happen.
And they're going to drag you through the mud. They're going to smear your name and claim that you're the cause of all of the problems.
All of it. I didn't do anything. Oh, yes, you did. What? We didn't look, dude. I wasn't standing on the shores of Africa with a resume in my hand, you know, asking about, you know, what is it around? Was it a one-way trip or around? What are the you know, I wasn't doing that. None of my relatives were, you know, and relatives, you know, my ancestors. But it's the unfortunate. It's an unfortunate situation when you don't know where it's all coming from, and you don't know.
Yeah.
I was on AI today. Sorry, people, I'm on it. Okay. And they, you know, I was looking up, you know, just, you know, I was trying to do research on the Illuminati. They wouldn't go there, man.
You mean the chat GPT or whatever it was?
Yeah,
said I won't talk about it.
Dude, this is what. Okay, hold on. Let me tell. Okay, hold on. Let me tell you what they say. And this is what I mean. This is where you're just like, dude, are you serious? Like there's certain things that let me find this real quick. There's certain things that they're just not. There's certain things people don't want to talk about on any level. You know, dude, how does InfoWars, how does Alex Jones make up a lie about how many people died, how many children died, like 18, 20, 22 or something like that? How does he say all of those people were actors?
Right.
And then he has millions of people believe it. Yeah. Millions.
Yeah.
The dude, you know how rich this guy is?
Yeah, from selling supplements and like survival and gold or whatever it is.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and but to the point where the parents had to sue this guy for hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars.
And then he allegedly tried to hide money so that he didn't have to pay, or they couldn't touch, you know, some of his wealth. And he makes so much. Like he just continued his grift, and
he's still doing it. He's still doing it.
And that's a lot of money.
You know, I'm glad you started this off the way you did with you know, a bunch of guys trying to like, hey man, we're trying to help people out, man. We're trying to, you know, this isn't something we're not trying to spread evil in the world. And then there are the other people, there are the naysayers that are like, hey, no, man, you know, look at what this has turned into. Look at what this has turned into. You know, the modern day Democrat, you know, like if you want to look at it that way, but we all know what that entails. It entails, generations of poverty and the inability to build wealth because you're not part of the the economic, social, political, cultural agenda of a nation, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's African Americans, that's women,
Hmm.
BIPOC people in general. Okay, but
Yeah.
now we're all like, it's like, okay, now we need to do better for ourselves, and the only way, but can we do that? Do you think we can do that? I mean, you think that's a possibility? What do you think?
That we can
Somehow
improve.
move past all this stuff that we're in right now.
Yeah. I get. I am kind of a glasses half full kind of guy. I know it's a dad joke that a lot of
No,
people
I'm
are
I'm
gonna say.
I'm on I'm on I'm on your
Uh,
side, dude.
no, I was just gonna say I'm like one of the guys who likes to say just like a bad dad joke that the glass is full, half full of air, half full of water. You know what I mean? But I do like to look at things positively and think I have to have hope. I know there's a lot not to have hope about, like
Yeah.
us not probably not going to do so great at saving the future humanity prospects from environmental changes, the detriment, the loss of species, the water's like getting too hot and losing a lot of our life. I mean, bugs, what bugs are down by 70% or something like that. Like, when's the last
Yeah.
time you saw a bug hit your windshield?
I haven't.
Um, yeah, and we have them here, the fireflies, but I see messages all the time from people who just haven't seen fireflies in years and years. So there's
Dude,
a
what
lot to
did
not have hope about, but I do have hope that not all of us, not all of the species is going to die off. A lot of people are currently in a lot of pain, and there's really big pain coming for a lot of people. But I do know that humanity has, so far, a propensity for finding solutions that are unique and very effective whenever the shit hits the fan and we really need to. I'm not saying that we're all of a sudden all gonna sing kumbaya and that group of hateful bigots is gonna go away. That's never gonna happen. There's always gonna be a group of people that hate people like us, that hate women, or that just don't want to give up like their power and their way of life. But I think that the change that's going to become necessary is going to necessitate that their way of life is just going to become irrelevant, and they're going to be angry and pissed off, and they're going to, a lot of them, not like the majority, but enough of them to make it horrible, are going to respond with violence. That's already
Oh
begun.
yeah.
That's
Oh
already
yeah.
begun. It's already
Oh yeah.
started. That's how civil wars start. We talked about that before.
And it's not necessarily going to be physical violence. It's going to be emotional violence.
Yeah.
It's going to be economic violence. It's going
Well, I
to
mean,
be,
they say
you
that
know, it's
outright. They say that they want like revenge for what we've done to their culture, which is like, what are you talking about? Your culture is still the thing in power. It's really hard for people to get a leg up today, especially people of color and women. That is still the case.
how
So,
does that work? How does that work? I mean, how do you not understand? When I was a kid, I remember this one time I was in college and oh God, I remember this. Sure as I'm sitting here, I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, and he's like, one of his friends walks up. One of our friends walk up, and they were both white, and goes, "Hey, Rod, what's up, man?" I'm like, "Oh man, I'm just a black man living in a white man's world," and he's just like, "What?" I'm just like, "Dude, for real." And then we bought like a case of beer and had like this like 4 hour conversation about it, and I'm just like, like everything that you can think of that's been born out of, you know, capitalism and conspiracy. Well, yeah, I mean, dude, because I mean, capitalism is one big conspiracy in and of itself, dude. I
well, I
mean,
mean,
think about it.
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, okay. So there's this phrase about neoliberalism, where it describes that it's become the new pervasive way of thinking, and I want people to understand that neoliberalism. It confused me too in the beginning. Isn't referring to liberals, like liberals and conservatives. It's not
Yeah.
talking about like Democrats as a whole or the people on the left. It's talking about kind of the economic, geopolitical system that exists, and that has people claim has reset how we kind of like run the world today. For example, that everything is kind of corporatism from the top down. So when we think about the economy and they say the economy is running good or not good, really that is saying profits for the top earners, the shareholders or whomever, are high, are good, or are bad. That's the way we think about the economy, and that kind of goes all the way down to like unemployment is good for the system. I'm using like I'm being in quotes and sarcastic here. Unemployment is good for the system is what economists say, and they use indicators and they try to ramp up unemployment, because what happens is higher unemployment means more infighting, or what it means more people trying to go for the same job, and you can reduce the wages. The wages are kept low, which keeps profits high. And so this is the idea for like neoliberalism being the thing that's kind of pervasively controlling the world. We're talking about conspiracy, so this is the right time and place to talk about that. And it doesn't have to be an actual like a handshake between a group of shady white male landowners in some back room in order to make that happen, because corporatism and profits and greed
It knows
like
no
is
color, bro.
like the people who have done that and done that well generationally, they still like money, they still want to earn more, and so they don't need to go into a back room and make a plan. It's real the way that you go about increasing profits has been known for a long time. You don't pay people very much, you don't give in to their demands about like healthcare. You rob them of that. You take away their nice coffee machines in the break room and their safety equipment and all of that. You increase their sometimes you decrease their hours so that they don't get 40 hours, so you don't get benefits. You stagger their hours throughout the week so that they can't get a second job or a third job. They stick with you at low pay.
Here's a good one. You don't work them 5 days a week. No, you work them 5 days a week, but you have them work on Saturdays, and then you give them. Dude, I worked for a company. I was an account manager. We worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday and Saturday.
Okay.
So, okay, your Friday was Thursday. So on Friday, when everyone's out, you're at home asleep. Because if you try to go out, you gotta be at work at 9 o'clock. I mean, and like you said, we didn't get 40 hours, we got 38. So they didn't have to give us any type of insurance or any type of benefits. We weren't full-time employees.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
By,
dude,
by design.
by design.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's it is a type of conspiracy in that now it's blatant. The greedy ones up top there, I'm sure, are great. I know there are great companies that exist, but they're few and far between. And most of them out there have figured out that we don't have the geography to collectively come together and just have a general strike. We don't have the time to do it. We don't have the savings to do it, and so they know that we're fucked, and so that they can keep wages low, they can run them down as inflation, which some of it is actual inflation, a lot of it is pure greed under the guise of inflation. They're using that as the scapegoat to increase profits.
I've got a friend who's in Buffalo right now. She left San Diego. She got her master's degree in English, and she's living in a trailer, working about 24 hours a week as a waitress, making $6.50 an hour and tips in Buffalo.
Yeah, which it's disgusting that somebody would pay
with a master's. Can't find a job.
Yeah.
Can't find a job.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, and you ask like, am I hopeful? I Part of me is hopeful. Part of me is very scared of what could be continuing to happen, and it could get worse. I can see how things definitely can get worse. I wonder. You talked about the AI. I wonder. I don't expect that it's going to kill off entire industries. I think some people who don't use AI in a new innovative way, a new tool that does improve things, are, the people who don't use it are going to lose their jobs to people who do use it. I think a lot of that is going to happen. There are going to be a lot of like service industry jobs where that's going to be done away with AI and upgrading technology and stuff like that. And so I worry about that, but I also am hopeful that not maybe not in our lifetime, you and I, because we're a little bit older, we're getting there anyway.
Mm.
Um, I have hope that the kids who are around today might, when they get older, when they're about the end of their life, might be the first ones who see a new economy ushered in globally, where people stop working to work, where we just go, okay, we've got these fantastic tools. We literally can't give everybody a job. It doesn't make any sense to like make to give a job to a human who's worse at the job than it does to make a computer or a robot or whatever do it when they're 10 times better. Why would we teach, like, let's say these new artificial intelligence coupled with androids became teachers who taught students 10 times better, and they didn't have frustration and the students didn't attack them like is becoming so pervasive. Why would you force humans to do a job, a worse job than a robot or an android with an artificial intelligence in it could do, and teach like students 10 times faster or better? And so I'm like, okay, I'm willing to see a future. I'm hopeful for a future where those things actually do, in a positive way, supplant or remove, our need to work in certain jobs. And I'm hoping that what comes along with that is a kind of an age of enlightenment where we go. Some of us need to be general thinkers and enjoy time and be there for maybe the elderly, care for people again. I'm hoping that we get what's the term where you basic income, where the governments or the systems like give people a paycheck to basically do
Live.
not do what they want in like a hokey way where like you
No,
want to
but
go on vacation, but like they live a meaningful life, an enriched life.
I saw, yeah, it was a clip. I don't know if it was a short. Anyways, these two ladies were talking, and they were just, maybe it's 2075 or something like that. And she just says, yeah, I made $450,000 last year, and I really didn't go anywhere, do anything. But life's good. I really don't. I'm not complaining. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? Like, yeah. Imagine, like you said, you're in a situation where, okay, the powers that be understand that not everyone's going to get a job. Not everyone can. We can't afford to um, have everyone out there working right now. Well, no, I guess that's not the way I want to look at it. It's not that we can't afford to have you out there working. It's that it's probably better for you to just take it easy and not put a strain uh, on the system,
Yeah.
on society, on driving, on gasoline, on
The
just
medical
breathe,
system.
yeah, breathing air, just whatever it is. And that, you're right, dude. That's a doggone. That's honestly, it's gonna go there.
I hope so. I think that part of,
It's gonna go there.
I think part of what we're seeing with kind of the youth, and it's happening to some older people too, where people are shooting up schools. I mean, there's lots of reasons, lots of mentalities, where people are shooting up schools or shooting up people delivering food, to their house or to accidentally ring their doorbell or whatever. I think part of that is a frustration with the system and them not seeing a future for themselves or anybody else. They just see that this is the way it's going to be. It's going to get worse. I'm not going to live a meaningful life and nobody else is, and they want to lash out. I don't think that's everybody, but I think that's a big part of a lot of it is this kind of lashing out. It's kind of a form of psychosis that has been increasing in how common it's happening because we as a society, if we're running continue to run it the way it's run through like kind of pure greed, it's sociopathic. It's sociopathic. We
You
don't
will
treat
not
people
replace
like
this, dude, or Jews will not replace this, dude. Come on, AME Church guy goes in there, kills 7 people. Buffalo grocery store guy goes in there, kills what, 12, 13 people. Dude from Dallas drives all the way to El Paso, goes to El Paso, shoots nothing but Latinos, like 24. You know,
you know.
and that's where we are. I mean, like I said before, you know, there are people. How does Barack Obama get elected twice? I mean, he got elected twice. And then Donald Trump becomes president, and this is where we are. Someone, well, you know, they're you know, there are people out there that they feel as though that they've been forgotten and blah 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 blah. Okay, maybe.
Well, they've been told to feel that way.
Yeah, they've been told to feel that way. That's true, but
Yeah.
but you got to think about it this way too. Did you vote for Obama? Yeah, I voted for Obama. So why do you vote for Trump? Because he told me I was white. And the conspiracy is that those people across the border are going to come and take my job.
Yeah, the caravans.
In the factory. I'm like, dude, those. No, they're really not going to come to Indiana and take your job,
Right.
because you don't have a job like that in Indiana.
No, they're not taking those jobs. Those people are actually ensuring Social Security will be there in the future because they can't take it out. They can put into Social Security, but they can't take it out. So that they're helpful to the
You know what I
people
mean?
who are going
I
to draw
mean,
Social Security.
I have a hard time. Dude, I have friends that are just like, you know, that are Republican who just, you know, they teeter on the isms, and I'm just like, dude, come on, come back.
Yeah.
Come back. It's not that bad. You think it is, but it's really not that bad, dude.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
when I hear these days, when I hear, because you know the tactics, like the conversations, I should say, that
Yeah,
work or that we should be having change based on the world and what's happening.
sure.
The one that I like right now, whenever I've got somebody on the far right or still supporting Republicans claiming, you know, this is temporary or they're not that bad or whatever excuse they've got. The question I like to ask them right now is, well, they've got one of the legislative bodies. So what bills are they passing that helps you? That helps you? And it's like, tell me, like, I understand that they're passing things that you're concerned about, like culture war stuff. Like, okay, let's pretend that a bill did help the kids somehow. They're protecting kids would be a claim. I'm like, yeah, but I want you to tell me what helps you. You personally, what bills are they passing? And that's what I'm sticking to at the moment. That'll change in the future after more elections and, you know, which houses are held by whomever. When that happens, I'll have to have a different conversation. But right now, it's really easy to point out to them. You know, there's a list of things there's a long list of things I can point to where Biden has helped people like them specifically. You know, Republicans. He's not trying to punish Republicans and only help Democrats. But those legislators, the Republicans, aren't passing anything that's helping them. They're doing culture war bullshit to distract from the fact that they can't and won't legislate. They're playing the shell game so that they can continue to take lobbyist money. And in my opinion, that's about the only way I know to perhaps turn on the light bulb and get them to go, you know, I might not like liberals or leftists or Democrats or whatever you want to, you know, think of or label, but it's untenable to not change anything in the future and have things improve. So I might as well, you know, what is it, the enemy of my enemy is, at least for now, my friend. Perhaps we can get some votes at critical times by having this like honest conversation with them, asking them what have they actually done for you? What have
Here's
they
the
done?
thing. Here's the thing, man. You've got your, you know, I'm going to paraphrase it. I can't remember exactly. It's like what, you know, a white man out there who's poor would rather be poor than black and be middle class.
Yeah.
Okay. He's also I was watching this thing about Mississippi, and the amount of white people that are on welfare in Mississippi is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
And how many of these people, dude, and how many times are we going to say this? Like, how many times are we going to ask how many people who are of European descent in this country who somehow think or believe that they're going to wind up like, in some white man's club, dude, it's over. That's done. Okay, you are voting against your own interests.
Mm-hmm.
This has been going. I mean, dude, I'm sick and tired of literally, dude. You can't talk to people who honestly think that Donald Trump is still the president of the United States.
No. Yeah.
Okay, and there are there are millions. I broke this down once. I'll break it down again. There are 360 million people in this country. 41 million are African American. 45 million are Latino American. Two to 3 million. Let's just say 10 million are other. So there's 155 million people who have European descent. 0.5% of that is 1.5 million. Okay? That hate anything brown. Hate.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's real, dude. It's real. So how do you connect to someone who's been tormented by not just the system, but by poor education, drugs, environments that just aren't allowing them to prosper in any way?
Yeah.
Appalachia, like parts of Tennessee, parts of West Virginia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, who's trying to pass that child labor law. You know what I mean? Like, this is just, like you want children to work longer hours at the age of 14, 15, 16 years old? Like,
yeah,
are you,
insane.
This isn't 1898 where some kid's working in a sweatshop, at some sewing machine, and by the time they're 28, their hands are crippled because they couldn't catch up to the growth spurts, so their bones didn't. Bro, I know all about this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. Will it last? Who knows? Because I think there are a lot of people out there who know better. But how can we even be in a situation where not that it's being allowed, but how are we in a situation where it's even being thought of?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you asked how are we going to reach them, and obviously there's a certain percentage that will never be reached because the bigotry set in, and they've decided that that's their core personality. That is their core personality. The way you're going to reach the only ones who can be reached is through authenticity, because that's what brings them into places where they support people like Trump, where they're sitting somewhere in a nebulous middle ground where they don't really care about politics or whatever. They just know they're angry and sad about a lot of life, and then they get somebody who's seemingly authentic. Like Trump is a pretty authentic guy, like I said, in that he will tell you straight up that he hates you and certain people, and he's disdainful of all of the other politicians, and he mocks them and stuff. He does what other people want to do. That's a form of authenticity. I'm not promoting it. I'm not saying it's
and he knows how to play the game, dude. He knows how to play the game.
People are drawn to authenticity, and that's where a lot of the problems come from Democrats or left, like primary candidates, like the ones who are like the big wigs already and are known and are supported by corporate interests and stuff. is they tend to play the respectable, kind of glossy guy who's had, and they have their PR teams who go through practice runs on how to not attack, but how to speak, to question, how to respond to questions, how to speak to reporters and their constituents, and it's just too glossy, and it comes off as fake, as plastic. It's not authentic, and it
Unauthentic,
turns
yeah.
off it turns off people, and it's not going to draw in those people who are desperate for change, and who have been sold lies before, and they're not buying it anymore. They're
Well,
not
see, here's the thing.
buying
Here's
that,
the thing. It's like, dude, you can't. How are you believing that Donald? Like, I'm bringing back coal. I'm bringing back, dude. It's never coming back. Steel is never
right,
coming back. Manufacturing,
right,
okay, but it what kind of manufacturing is it? Technologically advanced manufacturing? Is it robotics? What is it? Are they going to be able to hire 1,500 people? No, there's no way that's happening. There's no way. Those days are over. Bro, I grew up in Baltimore. I saw this city go from this unbelievably beautiful city in the early 70s when I was a kid. You could just go downtown and just rip and run and do whatever, you know, to like one of
yeah,
the most dangerous cities in America. You know, Chicago was the same way. San Francisco, just all these cities. Oh, they're run by Democrats. No, we don't have any jobs for these people.
yeah,
We have no job. COVID made sure, Donald Trump again. COVID made sure, dude, check this out. I go to buy a new cord for my amp. I'm talking to one of the guys who's a musician at a Guitar Center. And he's like, we start talking. He's like, I give him my number. And he's like, 619? I'm like, yeah. He's like, where you from San Diego? I'm like, yeah. He's like, so we start talking. He's like, man, I want to get out to LA so bad. I'm like, well, if you're a musician, that's probably where you want to be.
hmm
So he rattles off, you know, everything he's done and all his, basically gives me a word of mouth resume. And I tell him like, you know, one thing you got to realize about being out there, man. I'm like, it's not Maryland. And he goes, it's funny that you say that. He goes, because once COVID hit, it shut. There is nowhere to play in the state of Maryland, dude.
yeah,
It's over.
yeah,
I mean, I've been here 3 years. I've played one full gig.
yeah,
It's where we are, bro. It's where we are. That's the way life is going for. And luckily for me, and this is what I told him. I said I spent. So I went in the Marine Corps in '83, got out in '89. Started working and I worked for a couple places, but I started working for AT&T 1992, 93. Stayed there until I like 99, 2000. And then I worked for all these other, um, technology corporations. And I said, I'm basically retired. I'm like, I want to do the Uber Eats thing, but right now it's probably not a good time to drive up to someone's house, and we both started laughing, and I'm like, yeah, but basically right now, dude, I'm like, I just bought a house in Baltimore. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm like chilling. But I said at the same time, it's like, yeah, man, if you want to do that, back in the day, Pago, it was like when I got to LA in '92, grunge was like big time hardcore, Stone Temple Pilots, Nirvana, the Posies, um, you know, West Coast rap was just off the hook. It was a crazy time to be in LA, dude. It was
yeah,
just sick. And I told him that. He's like, wow. I'm like, but it's not like that now. Okay. I'm like, it's not like that now, but it's still LA. Okay. It's still Los Angeles. And there's always a lot that you can do, and there's a lot to be done. But it's where we are. I mean, and then I don't want to tie this back to the Illuminati, but it's just like it's like everything else. It's like good people trying to help, and just spread enlightenment, which is what I like to do. You know, like I don't want to be in a situation where I'm telling someone to f off or anything like that. That's just not where. That's not how I roll. But you know, the dynamics of the dynamics of our country and our planet, and you know, the literally, and I hate to use this word, but the globalization of our planet and systems, you know, just through you know, the global economy is just, it's where we are. And I never thought it would, I never thought it would be like this. You
Right.
know, like, well, I never did. When you're, like I said, when the most technology you ever saw was either the moon landing or Gemini or Apollo or the Jetsons, you know, or a Texas pocket, you know, what were those things called?
Texas Instruments,
Yeah, Texas Instruments. Yeah,
scientific calculators. Yeah.
yeah, the calculators. Yeah, you know, and now it's just like, dude, technology's leaps and bounds. It's leaps, and we still have to conspire. We still need to use conspiracies to get literally to get things done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we do. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just
Well, it's amazing to me. I think this is a little bit where you're pointed at. It's amazing to me that we still have to do what the original Illuminati, the Bavarian 1776
yeah.
one,
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
tried to do in order to affect change, because the ways in which the world seems broken is so deeply ingrained intentionally by just greedy, hateful people. It's, you know, it's not a secretive group that's like doing magic. They're not doing magic. They're not, you know, using children's pineal glands to extend their life. They're just greedy. They're just assholes who are greedy, and they have I mean, a long, rich history of tools in which to exact their hopes and dreams and plans that don't include anybody else.
They don't
Uh,
include you.
yeah, they don't include
You-
me.
the one thing that I and like I don't know. There's a there's this one there's this one stand up bit that Chappelle does where he says, you know, it's 2016. He pulls up to this this line where people are voting, and he sees all these pickup trucks and, you know, all these Donald Trump signs and bumper stickers, and he goes, that's what I knew Donald Trump was going to win. And he goes, I looked into the eyes of all these dusty faces, and he said, you know, these people said to him, Donald Trump, he's going to save us. He's going to help us. And in his head, he was like, nah, Donald Trump is going to help people like me. You know, when you get to that level, dude, when the train derails in Palestine, Indiana, and you know you have nowhere to go, and the town's 95% Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, European American, who are you pissed at, dude? You can't be mad at Jose.
right.
You can't be mad at Letitia.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be mad at you know. And then Donald Trump shows up, and I'm your savior, and because he showed up at Palestine, India, and these people were like, Donald Trump's gonna save us. No, dude, save yourself. You know, if you're smart enough to do that, if you're I'm not saying smart enough, but if you're able to I mean, like, how do you get out of West Virginia? How do you get stuck? How does the cycle and I'm not talking just about your, you know, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, white Americans. I'm talking about like African Americans, in Chicago, like, how in God's name is it that you know that this is not a place you should be? You know you shouldn't be here. You know you need to leave, but you continue. Is it education? Is it or is it just, the fact that you're so, I mean, like, not I don't want to use the word complacency, but you're in a situation where the apathy in your life, you're beyond any type of like guidance that anyone could give you to help you from literally from A to B. Forget about W or M or N or P. Well, I just want to get you to B, bro.
Yeah.
Some people can't even get there, bro. Dude, I drive through Baltimore every day. I'm telling you, it's just like there are parts of it that are pristine and beautiful, and there's a lot of it that's just, what in God's name? I know this is what happened. Like you said, you sold your people out, dude. Sent all that stuff to Mexico and China, NAFTA, and now all your homies, all the boys in the hood, they don't have jobs. They're making cars somewhere else. They're making cars in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Chrysler moved was it Chrysler that moved to Brazil? Yeah, I think it was. It's just, I'm not going to say it never stops, but it hasn't stopped as long as I've been alive.
Right. Right. Yeah, I don't know when if it's gonna improve. Like I said, I have hope. I am willing, I guess, to join any secret societies out there that are improving things. If they want to recruit me, no, not really. I've learned that I've learned that perhaps those
Dude,
are
I'm
not the
done.
best things to join up to. But
I did
do.
that once. I did that once. I
Did you?
joined the Marine Corps, dude. I joined
Oh,
the
right.
Marine Corps, and that's a secret society, dude. It's a gang. Trust me.
Yeah. No, I believe
Yeah,
it. I
bro.
believe it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's. There are
I
times.
do. Go ahead.
No, time. There are times, Pago, when I drive around, and I literally go park someplace, and I turn off the car, and I have to literally talk to myself about the things that happened to me in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
There's a reason they gave me 70% disability for PTSD, because there are times when I'm like, Jesus, man, I gotta pull over, and I gotta, because there's so much that people just don't know about. There's just
Right.
so much, like, if you want to call it, conspiratorial, I don't know, but there's that line that what's his name, Jack Nicholson used in that movie A Few Good Men. Was that it? A Few Good Men?
Yeah.
Where where he's like, you want me on that line, you need me on that line.
Right.
Dude, that's happening right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere in the world. You can't tell me that there's in some corner of this planet there's just some awful stuff going down, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, just
Absolutely.
awful,
Yeah.
and we're perpetrating it, or another government's perpetrating it on our behalf.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Right.
That's how that's how these things get done, man. I've seen it.
Yeah. I think the lesson of the day is that conspiracies are real, but not the weird, magical, woo-woo wizard ones. It's
Yeah,
just
no.
one's born out of like corruption, greed, hate, forms of bigotry, control, power. Like it's just that there are large enough segments of humanity that suck hard enough that this has just been a continuing thing throughout humanity's existence,
Woo.
and it's probably going to continue.
It's never going to stop, dude.
It's never going to stop. But there can be some authentic people who can affect change enough to at least make some people's lives better some of the time.
As
So,
Bill Burr once said, all we need is we just need one We just need one.
Yeah.
Just we just need it to we need it to roll through, and just take to the point where I can go to the Super Bowl every single year,
Yeah.
or I'm playing football at the Super. It's just you know the housing, dude. You could just go off. Anyways, with that being said, I think we're done, dude. I think that
Yeah.
was
Yeah, I mean that's an hour and 30. If anybody made it all the way through, thank you very much. We really appreciate anybody
yeah, man.
who watches the entire length of them,
And
and
let us know
we
what you think,
will.
man. Tell us
Yep.
what you think. If you're,
Yeah.
we're normal guys who, I don't know if we know a lot, but we know enough to have a conversation about it, whatever it
Yeah, we've
is.
had these conversations for a long time, just one on one over the phone, and now we've decided to invite you guys in for the conversation as well. So don't be afraid to chime in, and thanks for joining us. All right,
Peace.
American Micro Podcast out.